If you think the Supreme Court's ruling that Obamacare is constitutional is the end of the debate, think again. This is one of those cases where history has a huge lesson to teach us. Back before 1973, abortion was illegal nationwide. I'm old enough to remember a girl in my high school in Lansing, Michigan, who in 1967 died of sepsis from an illegal abortion. One day she was there, a week later she was dead. Her dad worked at Oldsmobile and had health insurance, but health insurance didn't cover abortions because they were illegal. The richer girls at school had their parents get them what was called a D&C operation in the hospital. And pretty much everybody knew, it was kind of an open secret, that when a 17-year-old girl was getting a D&C, it was code for an early term abortion. But this young woman's parents didn't have the money to pay for a hospital procedure that wasn't covered by insurance, so she tried the coat hanger method and died. Many people old enough to remember 73 can tell you similar stories. Back in 1973, many Americans knew these stories. For example, Supreme Court Justice Lewis Powell had a clerk, well actually he was a messenger, whose girlfriend died from a botched self-administered abortion. He came to Lewis Powell and said, "Help me, tell me what to do." Powell helped him cover it up. He worked it out with the local police. Which is why when the Supreme Court struck down the nation's anti-abortion laws in 1973 in Roe v. Wade, well over half of Americans agreed with the decision. Everybody knew these kind of stories. So when Roe v. Wade was decided, Democrats figured, hey, everybody understands how, good this is. It's the end of the issue. Supreme Court's spoken. Let's move ahead, the Democrats said. Deal with the bigger issues like the environment or trade policy or ending the war in Vietnam, which, by the way, wasn't ended until 2 years later in '75. Democrats figured the controversy around Roe v. Wade would soon settle down because, after all, the Chief Justice, Warren Burger, who had only been on the bench for 4 years, was a longtime conservative, a Republican activist who'd helped Dwight D. Eisenhower win the White House. He was appointed Chief Justice of the Supreme Court in '69 by Richard Nixon, who'd been Eisenhower's VP and had known Burger for decades. And Burger had voted mostly in a conservative direction. For example, in '72, the year before Roe v. Wade, albeit in the minority, he argued hard and voted to keep the death penalty legal in the United States. But then in 1973, Roe v. Wade came before the court. And this conservative Nixon appointee, Chief Justice Warren Burger, voted in a split decision that abortion during the first 3 months of pregnancy should become legal in the United States. Pundits and Republicans were shocked that the Nixon appointee for Chief Justice had joined with the liberals on the bench. And there was all kinds of huffing and puffing. But again, the liberals figured, hey, it's a done deal. That's going to be that. Yeah, it's going to blow over in a year or so. Live with it, right-wingers, was the mantra of the day. But immediately after the decision, conservative politicians started using opposition to the Supreme Court's decision and opposition to abortion to make political hay and, perhaps most importantly, to raise huge piles of money. For a century in the United States, ever since just after the Civil War, the phrase right to life had described the anti-death penalty movement. But the National Right to Life Committee incorporated in 1973 in response to Roe v. Wade. And today, pretty much nobody remembers that phrase right to life used to refer to the movement to stop the death penalty. Instead of going away, as Democrats thought it would, the newly birthed right to life movement to overturn the Supreme Court's Roe v. Wade decision, or to legislate around it, grew into a powerful national force. It became the litmus test for Republican-appointed justices to the Supreme Court and even to federal appeals courts. Similarly, opposition to Roe v. Wade became the litmus test for Republican candidates for elective office. Pretty much the only strongly pro-choice Republican in the Senate right now, for example, is Olympia Snowe. And she's resigning this year. And most importantly, the anti-abortion forces have raised hundreds of billions of dollars for the Republican Party over the years. Which brings us to this week's Supreme Court decision, upholding Obamacare. Democrats and the president are basking in the glow of winning the Supreme Court case. The president even made a statement encouraging us all to move on from this debate, not to relitigate the past, and instead to focus on bringing jobs back to America. Progressives are breathing a sigh of relief, thinking the issue is settled and over. The issue is not over. Mark my words. This is just the beginning of a generational battle. There's no such thing as a perfect health care system. Obamacare isn't perfect either. There will be people who get bad care or who even die from mistakes in the system. And the Republicans will make them as famous and iconic as Terry Schiavo. Every little failure or problem will be magnified 100-fold. Repeal Obamacare is going to become the battle cry for Republicans for the next 20 years or longer. You think not? It's already started. Michelle Bachmann was on CNN this morning encouraging governors to refuse to implement the state insurance exchanges. And Scott Walker's already said he's not going to go along with Obamacare. The former head of the Michigan Republican Party, in a candid moment, wondered out loud if this decision meant it was time for an armed insurrection. Mitt Romney has raised nearly $5 million since the decision came down, and as we speak, groups are forming all over the country to raise money to fight Obamacare. Democrats, wake up. This is going to be massive. And just like with abortion, the Republicans will never make a real and serious effort to actually do away with Obamacare because they know that would horrify most Americans. But year after year, they're going to be waving that bloody shirt, the icon of the French Revolution, of their opposition to Obamacare. And just like with abortion, this is going to flip elections from city councils to Congress and the White House. Get ready, Democrats. The bleep storm has just begun.